Hi, everybody. Welcome. Very happy to have you and wishing you a very happy Asian Heritage Month, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Month, and also Mental Health Awareness Month, which to me, it's great that these are all combined because as an Asian Canadian woman and coming from a pretty traditional Asian Canadian family and Asian society, Asian culture, community, this is not one of the things we talk about too much. So it may not seem directly related to innovation and risk-taking, but we'll help make that connection today. So very glad for all of you who could join us. Just take a quick moment to introduce ourselves in case you're not too familiar with who we each are. And actually, I'll let Jennifer speak for herself. I'm just really honored to be doing this together with you, Jen. Jen and I met through an online Facebook group for coaches of color and kind of a subgroup for Asian coaches. So it's been fantastic so far. And I'm just going to shut up and let you do your thing, Jen, and maybe share a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Great. Thank you, Rosie. And yes, of course, I can do that. Also, happy AAPI month and glad to share this space with you and everyone else here as well. I'm Jennifer Nielsen. I am the owner of Nielsen Executive Coaching LLC, or NEC, or NEC for short. I am a leadership coach, speaker, facilitator, and trainer with a focus on inclusive leadership development. Prior to becoming a coach, I spent over 18 years in the corporate world of professional services. Today, in my inclusive leadership coaching, I have a passion to help Asian professionals, particularly Asian women, redefine success with embracing fierce courage and confidence to progress and grow in their careers so that they can also NEC, which stands for Navigating, Elevate, and Creating Their Best Work in Life. That's why I also am your Chief Success Coach. And how do I do that? Well, I'm bringing in my over 20 years of work experience to include all of my challenges, struggles, and learnings. And at this point in my coaching profession, I've coached over 250 multicultural professionals, and I've seen consistent patterns across all of my coaches and clients is that there's this fear of just taking professional risk until it's too late. They've either been laid off, lost their jobs, lost their confidence, or just lost their chances of promotion. So thus, this topic is very relevant for me today, Rosie. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction. And we'll be sharing websites. Actually, if you're on LinkedIn right now, you can just check out Jennifer's profile so you can learn lots more about her because like you, we can't share everything that's relevant about ourselves in a couple of minutes. But I will just give a brief intro for anyone who's not deeply familiar with me already. I am a trauma-informed certified trauma recovery coach and a trauma-informed executive coach. And I say those things because I'm trying to build something that is not one size fits all. Because as many of us as Asians know, Western sizes do not fit us. So that's why I created an executive coaching. And that's at the heart of what I believe in very deeply, which is about changing lenses. Just going to take a moment because I found that visuals help me explain a little bit more what I do or how I'm seeing things. Literally, it's about changing our lenses so we change how we see ourselves instead of changing who we are and what we do. And so I look through the lenses of race, gender, and culture, as well as trauma and therefore work. And I also wear several different hats as a coach. Again, this is something where I feel like it's not in the traditional realm of corporate coaching. And so rather than just, here's the box, I'm trying to break out of the box that white coaches have been put into or white coaches have created and be all these different things, kind of like a mix between an Olympic coach and an HR consultant on your side and an employee advocate and also like a healer and a mental health practitioner and ultimately just your partner, a journey partner and a guide. That's really what is the most important thing to me. So all of that to say, we're here today to talk about Asian heritage and specifically our upbringing, our lived experiences, because we recognize Asia is huge. So are our experiences. In no way are we saying that we represent all Asian experiences. Our experiences are our own. And there are many similarities between Asian culture and particularly Asian diaspora culture, which is not the same as culture if you were born and grew up in different parts of Asia. And especially because as diaspora, we end up interacting, sometimes conflicting with Western culture, which is the predominant business culture. So since risk-taking and this concept of innovation is a very, I'm going to say Western concept, or the way it's been presented to us has very Western traits that aren't necessarily in alignment with how you may have been brought up if you come from an Asian background. Jennifer and I really wanted to share some of our stories, our childhood experiences, our professional experiences, and of course, share some coaching tips with you so that we can all explore our relationship to risk, what we've done in the past, what we do now, and how we want to be in the future. And we also want to make this very interactive. So feel free as we are going through this to chime in with your own stories. If something resonates with you, please give us a high five or a smiley emoji or a sad face emoji, whatever it is that represents how you relate to it. And also feel free, of course, to ask your questions because we'll make sure to make time for questions as well. So all that being said, let's get right into it. And Jennifer, I will invite you to start us off by sharing some of your past experiences and how that's influenced you.
Yeah, thank you, Rosie. So first of all, every year since I became a coach, I like to set an intention for myself every year. And so for 2024, the intention I've set for myself is to be more bold. And I have to take a pause for a second and ask myself, why do I think I'm not bold today? Like, what makes that an intention or what makes that important to me? So reflecting on my past to inform why do I think that maybe I need to be more of a risk taker, because bold to me means being more of a risk taker. And where does that come from? So looking to your past is always a great place to start, Rosie. So thank you. And actually, when I was thinking about my past, a lot of it was blurry. Like there's like gaps in my memory of my past. So I love what you're doing in terms of like taking it from a place of like, was there trauma in my past that's created this blanket cover of like lost in memory? So I've been reflecting all year about why I chose boldness as my intention. And so I'm happy to kind of share what came up for me, but just to put it out there, like sometimes when we do to protect ourselves, maybe choose not to remember certain parts of those past memories that could have been, not so pleasant. But I have to recognize and own that my formative years clearly made an impression in my adulthood in terms of my choices. So looking back in my past and what gets in the way of me taking risks today, well, of course, the big blueprint of my life came from being surrounded by my parents. My parents are what created the blueprint of my childhood and early adulthood. And I didn't question it for a long time. So I'm so glad that even though I'm mid 40s now, it's never too late. It's never too late to decide what your future looks like. But yeah, so for me, just growing up, the word risk taking was not even it wasn't like the word was ever eliminated or not discussed in my household. But the messaging clearly showed that risk-taking was not encouraged in my house, right? Because my parents are first-generation immigrants. We came here as Vietnam War refugees, and them leaving their home was probably the biggest risk. I can't even imagine being uprooted from my home and family to go to a foreign country today. Like that sounds like such a big risk. So I can see that where it was a big risk to my parents turned into survival and lots of sacrifice growing up for me. Because to them, they're like, okay, you're my child. I want to protect you. I want to keep you safe. So all of my messaging was around not taking risks. So I spent most of my childhood thinking and hearing words like more of what I can't do versus what I can do. So all I knew is what I couldn't do. Like you can't go outside. You can't meet lots of, certain friends are bad friends. You can't, date too early. And at the end of the day, it was really, unfortunately, I think they thought they were helping me, but it was a form of control for them, right? I mean, sometimes when you think you're helping someone, you're actually creating them to be more dependent on you. So that must have felt safe and secure for them. So yeah, survival, sacrifice. If it wasn't suffering to my parents, it meant that they weren't doing things right. And so that's all I knew was sacrifice, survival, and hardship. Was the way to see the world, and no one could be trusted except for my parents. Only my parents knew what was right for me, and nobody else could be protected. So over time, you think, well, if I can't trust the world, then my space feels small. And when your space feels small, you're not going to want to take any risk because it just feels so big and ambiguous, and all that uncertainty creates a lot of this mental barrier to doing something different or scary. So that was my messaging. And, you know, my parents probably saw me as a retirement plan or an insurance policy. So going to school, getting good grades, all those things you hear about, the model minority, right, is those stable job, making a good income. That was their return on investment for the sacrifice they took to go to America. Is like they didn't come to America for opportunities. They had to leave a war situation. So it was all about survival. So yeah, I think they looked at me, unfortunately, as a retirement plan. And now that I realize what they were doing, I'm like, hey, that's not really fair that they thought that I could just give them a secure, place to live once they get old. But they've come a long way. I would say they've come a long way. They're not there yet, but because I have younger siblings who are second and third generation now, they're starting to open up. Like, yeah, they've got to come up with their own retirement plan. They can't rely on me anymore. But yeah, so that was my early messaging. What about you, Rosie? What was your early messaging?